frequent strange humanoid alien encounters in Canada in 1968. Greys, Blues, and Dwarf aliens. This is by Ansh Srivastava, Infinite Explorers. The year 1968 was marked by a big spike of UFO sightings around the world, but one particular place that saw a wave of reports of UFOs and alien encounters was Canada. And a little before that, when I lived in Montreal, Canada, in our cul-de-sac, when we were riding our bicycles during summer vacation with our friends around there, we did see a UFO above an electrical tower. By process of elimination, we figured it was a UFO. It was not a helicopter, it wasn't a hot air balloon, it wasn't a weather balloon, and it was at the beginning of the forest at the end of our neighborhood, an electrical tower. It was just sitting on top of there. As we were going around and round and round, it was just there, noiseless, round, and a dull white color. So, humanoid alien sightings in Canada in 1968. In that year, Canada experienced an unprecedented surge in the history of the country and an intense increase in reports of strange flying objects and their bizarre crews. This wave began in April in Vancouver with 2 eyewitnesses who were sitting in their car near White Cliff Park when they noticed a very bright object flying low over the trees and gradually descending. Shortly after the UFO disappeared behind the trees, a small luminous man came out of the forest, moving with very fast and precise movements and glowing so brightly that it was impossible to see any clothes or features of his face. The strange little creature finally noticed 2 people looking in its direction, then turned towards the forest, quickly disappeared behind the trees, and shortly after that, the bright object flew up into the sky, accelerated sharply, and disappeared from view. A few days later, in Chicoutimi, Quebec, a woman named Tremblay was walking down the road to a restaurant when she saw a strange object hovering in the sky. From the bottom of the object, a cone-shaped beam came out, reaching the ground. According to the woman, a beam of light reached her as she closed her eyes at the sudden blinding brightness, but it lasted only a few moments. Then she opened her eyes. She found that the object had disappeared and was nowhere to be seen. The stunned woman decided to go home, but was even more shocked when she saw, quote, a small humanoid creature with deep blue eyes, dressed in a strange-looking seamless white jumpsuit, near her house. According to the witness, as soon as the tiny man realized that he had been noticed, he vanished into thin air right before her eyes. Over the next few months, similar humanoids wearing white overalls were seen in the same area by other eyewitnesses. In June, in Sarnia, Ontario, a 10-year-old girl was walking outside her house in the evening when she suddenly saw the summer, when she suddenly saw a luminous humanoid with a bald head and no facial features, no pronounced nose, mouth, and eyes, sitting on a beach near their garage. She claimed that when he stood up, he was almost 2 meters high, and that she was frightened by his appearance and began to call for Dad. At the sound of the girl's voice, the humanoid immediately disappeared without a trace. A little later that June, 2 women were walking near a parking lot in Laval de Rapide, Quebec, late at night, when they saw some strange object eclipsing the full moon in the sky. As they peered into the strange anomaly, they could see 2 small human beings levitating, quote-unquote, through the air and approaching directly towards them. As they approached, the women saw that they had black skin and were dressed in tight-fitting one-piece suits. Then the creatures reached the ground. They took out a tool that looked like a small pitchfork from somewhere and began to dig the ground with them, ignoring the astonished women. What the creatures did next remained unknown, as both women ran away from there in a panic. In July 1968, the wave of observations continued. On July 2nd, a resident of the settlement of Alexis de Montcalm in Quebec saw a group of about 20 tiny green men with pointed noses and hats in the shape of mushrooms passing by her house at night. On the same day, 2 constables from St. Thomas, Quebec, noticed 2 little people with oversized heads. The growth of the little men was about 60 centimeters. The creatures ran across the drainage ditch, and when the police gave chase, they disappeared into the air. On July 26, two boys biking near the airport in Rivière-du-Loup, Quebec, said they saw two gray-skinned humanoids, a little less than a meter tall, about 3 feet tall, run out from behind an aircraft hangar and disappear into the bushes. 2 days later, on July 28, 5 teenagers from Stanislas de Crosdad, Quebec, saw 2 UFOs with a red glow land near them. When the young people went there to look, they encountered a humanoid about 120 centimeters tall, with a large head, that's about 3.5 feet tall, with a large head, no noticeable neck, large round eyes, a flat nose, and brown skin that was wrinkled, covered with scabs and bumps. They claimed that when they shone a flashlight on the creature, the strange creature staggered and backed towards the barn, and then knocked on the window, making a mooing sound like a cow. Then it disappeared into the night, and they saw a flying UFO. In the same month, strange humanoid creatures and UFOs were also reported from other regions, and in some cases eyewitnesses even claimed that they were abducted. One such story comes from an Ontario woman who claimed to have been taken directly from her front yard. She saw a large glowing disc descend, and 3 humanoid aliens emerge from it and drag her onto their ship. She was placed on a floating bed and operated on, opening her brain in an attempt to insert a tracking device, quote-unquote, into her head, and then healing the wound with a wave of incomprehensible device. It's not clear what these creatures looked like, as this story, first published in Michael D. Meck's book Mass UFO Sightings, does not provide a proper description. In August, oddities became even more. In Vancouver, a group of teenage boys who were playing with air guns at the Shaughnessy Golf Course noticed a metal object the size of a car that looked like a flying saucer on the grass. Curious children walked up to it and tapped on its surface, and then one of them saw a pale blue humanoid nearby in white overalls with a red sash around the waist. Quote, the boy said to him, "My name is Kim," and put his right hand over his heart as a greeting. The creature raised its palms up in response and made a sound, but it sounded like it had no tongue at all. Then it extended its right hand and nodded at the boy to do the same with the left. And then they put their palms on top of each other as if for comparison. Their palms turned out to be very similar in shape, only the alien had very pale skin. Then the boy heard a voice in his head saying, "Would you like to pray?" And the creature bowed and extended its arms, pointing palms down at the boy. The boy was a little embarrassed, and to make his friends, who were literally stunned by the scene, laugh, he gestured towards the air gun in his right pocket. The alien seemed to sense this and seemed to take it as a threat, and the teenager had to apologize, explain that it was just an air pistol and not real. The alien seemed to understand this. The boy then said a few more words and then waved to the alien, and the alien waved back, and the boy went to his friends and they left the area. Also in August, in Montreal, Quebec, 3 men named Guy Gagné, Jean-Guy Girora, and Carol Marquis were returning home from a fair when they saw a creature about a meter high, that's about 3 feet high, similar to a monkey but with a disproportionately large head. The creature moved very awkwardly, as if it was in great difficulty for him to walk, but then he got to the lantern, he very dexterously jumped on it, and then made a very long jump to the other side of the street and disappeared from sight. On August 28, a group of school children in Coleraine, Quebec, saw a strange creature lurking in a cemetery. It had been described as looking like 120 centimeters tall, with a bald head, a thick black beard, and rough scaly red skin similar to that of a lizard. Now, this is all these are about 1968, and the population of the total top population of Canada at that time was about 10 million people, from east to west, north and south Canada. Only 10 million people. I think it's about 30-something now. So going on with this creature was seen by school children for 3 days, and on the fourth day it boarded a blue-white-red flying saucer, which soared into the sky, leaving behind a column of thick smoke. This strange smoke, in addition to the school children, was seen by several other adults, whom the children called in order to believe them. On September 14, 3 young girls in Drummondville, that's around Montreal, saw a little man in a coat and a hat moving around with robot-like movements. When he noticed the girls, a grimace of intense fright appeared on his face, and then the little man just vanished into thin air. The next day, the same girls noticed the same shorty again. This time it appeared from a circle of red light, and he was wearing a dark blue jumpsuit. Then the dwarf again made his strange robotic walk behind the tree and again suddenly disappeared, leaving behind strange footprints. On September 21st, 2 different girls saw a creature they named Martian on the roof of their school in Coatiacook, Quebec. The creature had a green face with no nose, mouth, or hair, and emitted sparks as it moved. On September 28, a family from Asbest, Quebec, saw a green rectangle in the sky, from which a yellow-orange disc flew out, from which several humanoids then emerged, which floated in the air around the disc before returning to the ship and flying away. A similar object was seen by several other witnesses in the area. Why, during the course of 1968, was it in Canada that there was such a high concentration of encounters with mysterious humanoid beings? Were any of these cases related to each other, and what were these entities? Were they aliens or interdimensional aliens? And if so, what did they want, and why in 1968? All this is, to put it mildly, confusing. And this is on Infinity Explorers by Ansh Srivastava. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.